Hello and welcome to my tutorial. In this tutorial, we are going to focus on challenges experienced when trying to license the Mivoice business. So we'll just go through the most common challenges that I have seen people come across, and then they request for assistance. Let's start by connecting to our Mivoice Business Controller Server Manager. So I am going to demonstrate the first error that people get. So for this one, we go to service link, then status. I put in my service account ID. The service account ID is your application record, your RID. Then I am going to say activate. Then let's wait and see which error we get. Okay, so this is the error, our first error. It's saying operation status report. The following errors occurred during activation. Application record attempt to synchronize with the different hardware ID footprint. You probably need to reset hardware ID in license server. Please double check first whether entered serial or service account ID field is the correct one. So this one it's clear. What the message is saying is that the application record that I have used here, it is assigned to another controller, which means when you get onto the license manager, onto the server, which we used to call the AMC, which is now being called SLS, it means there is already a controller, there is a footprint there. We used to call it a system ID. So which means that is what we are calling a footprint now, the system ID. But it means that for this application record, when this controller tries to sync and pull some licenses, it sees that there's already a controller which has left its system ID there. So what then needs to be done is that you need to contact your administrator who administrates your licenses on your behalf to go onto the SLS and clear that footprint, to clear the hardware ID, so that this controller that we are trying to license has a chance of going to the license server and putting its own footprint and then pulling the licenses. So that's all that you need to do to clear this error. So I am going to demonstrate a second error now. So take note of this first error and how you resolve it. Okay, let's demonstrate a second error. Let's activate that. The Mitel license server is not reachable at the address given, sync.mitel.amc. But this error is coming because there is no internet connectivity to this. We can try and troubleshoot that, because it is saying the Mitel license server is not reachable at this IP address. So we can do that by opening a putty or Terra term. Then we log on to the controller. Let me just change this font to Cedar Console 4K so that we can all see. So first I need to verify that this controller is having internet. I'll go to review configuration here. I'll see that the default gateway for my controller is 192.168.1.1. The first thing is that I want to see if this controller is reaching that gateway. I'll do a ping to the gateway 192.168.1.1. So I can see that I am failing to reach the gateway. I am failing to reach the gateway. So that is also, this could be also the reason why I am getting this error. And I'm 100% sure that this is why I'm getting this error. But let me try, because I can't reach the default gateway, therefore it follows that if I can't reach my gateway, then I cannot get out to the internet in order to reach the license server. Right now I've attempted again to make a sync, although I still can't reach my default gateway here, which is 192.168.1. and when I try to do another activation, it has come back with another error, which is saying address of Mitel license server or proxy is not resolvable. So I am having two errors in one. This error is coming because the default gateway, this 192.168.1.2, is also my DNS server. So the DNS server is what we use to resolve the IP address of the Mitel license server. As you can see, the license Mitel server here, it is saying it's an FQDN, which is sync-staging.sls.mitel.com. This has to be converted into an IP address first. Then that IP address is the one that is used to reach the server. So because coincidentally my default gateway is also my DNS server, so by failing to reach the gateway, it is also failing to reach the DNS server. So I've got the first challenge is that the gateway. So now I am going to recreate this challenge where I am supposed to have a DNS server that is different from the default gateway. So let me go ahead now and create a different DNS server and assign a different DNS server to the controller, which is different from the gateway. Let's go ahead and do that. Now I'm going to Terratem again. This time I'm going to log in as admin. Okay, for this let us use putty just to to use variety. Let's go and use putty 192.168.1.2. Open there, accept, admin, enter, lab 1238 lab. Configure this server. Here you can see that our default gateway is 192.168.1.1 and our DNS server is 88888 quad 8. So this quad 8 is not sitting on the same subnet as 192. So for me to resolve the FQDN, let's do this. Let's copy that. Let's come here. For me to be able to resolve this FQDN, this one has to be resolved to an IP address by the controller. So that the controller can use the IP address to reach the Mitel license server on the internet. So this controller has been assigned DNS server IP address as being 8.8.8.8, and the MIVB IP address, we know that it is 192.168.1.2, and we know that the gateway that we have assigned the controller is 192.168.1.1. So in order for the controller to resolve this, FQDN, this is, we call it the FQDN for the Mitel license server, which is equal to this. So for the controller to resolve this, is going to ask for the IP address from the DNS server, but because our DNS server is 8.8.8.8, which is on the internet, it then needs to go through the default gateway 192.168.1.1 in order to reach 8.8.8 to get the IP address of sync staging slms.mitel.com. But because our default gateway is down right now, it is down, so I'm symbolizing it by this X, it cannot then go out into the internet to talk to the DNS server 8.8.8.8 in order for it to request for the IP address of this FQDN. So we now need to make sure that this default gateway is working so that this controller can be able to reach the DNS server and resolve this, and then we see if we can manage to license. Okay, so let's close this, let's close the, and then we go back to, I'm just going to my network. I can see that my default gateway is off, so I'm going to switch on my default gateway now. I've switched on, which is a router in my case. So I've now switched on the router. Let's give it a few seconds for it to start to finish booting. So let's go back again now into PuTTY, and let's connect to our controller again. This time we are logging in as root. Okay, let's do a ping to our default gateway again, 192.66.1.1. We can see our gateway is up, it's replying. Now, because we know our DNS server is sitting out in the internet, which is 8.8.8, so let's see if the controller can reach it. Let's ping 8.8.8. Well, it can reach it, so that's fine. We exit here, we go back to the controller, we try and do another synchronization. We try to attempt to activate again. Okay, so the controller is successfully synced and it has pulled some licenses. So let me also demonstrate now where we've got our gateway working but our DNS server is not working. Although we had the previous scenario where we had our DNS server was working, but because our DNS server was sitting outside the gateway where we needed the gateway to reach the DNS server, but the gateway being down, we couldn't reach the DNS server. So therefore we were having two challenges. So right now I am going to simulate a scenario where our DNS server is inside the network, so that we don't need the default gateway to resolve the DNS, but we need to demonstrate when the DNS server itself is down or cannot resolve the FQDN for the Mitel license server while the gateway is up. So let's simulate that. Let's start by clearing this so that we can, okay, no, that's fine. Let's just go back to PuTTY again. So I'm going to remove the DNS server from being 8.8.8.8 to 192. Okay, something went wrong here. Back, next, no, next. I'll say 192.168.1.11. So this is what we are going to use as our DNS server, which is on the network. But for now, this DNS server is not working, or it could be working but not knowing how to resolve the FQDN for the Mitel license server. But for now, let's just go ahead and use it. Okay, now that we have completed changing the DNS server, let's try and sync again. Okay, so now we've got these errors. Warning: the Mitel license server cannot be contacted. Please check connectivity and ensure that secure shell connections TCP port 22 are permitted from this server to the host sync.mitel-amc.com. All connections will be initiated by this server, so only outbound connectivity is required. But we know this first error is not true in our case, so we can easily ignore that. We know that it is not internet connectivity. Then we go to the second error: the Mitel license server cannot be contacted. Please check connectivity and ensure that secure shell connections are permitted from this server to the host sync there. But we also know that we have internet connectivity, but what we can tell from this is that we cannot reach this. Okay, let's do this. Let's just do a test now. Let's prove this error. We just copy this because it is saying shell connections are ensure that secure shell connection are permitted from this server to the host sync Mitel AMC on port 2200. So it is saying to us we must make sure that the controller can reach sync Mitel -amc.com port 22. Port 22 is the port for SSH. So we can just go into our putty again. We log in again, this time with the router again. And we can just start by pinging. Let's just do a ping test. Ping. We copy this. You can see nothing is happening. Nothing is happening. It's failing to resolve. It is failing to resolve. Name or service not known. So it has failed to resolve this name into an IP address. This is what it simply means. And it is failing to resolve this name into an IP address because it is contacting a DNS server that is either not reachable, or the DNS server is a wrong DNS server completely, or the DNS server is reachable but the DNS server itself doesn't know how to resolve this. So this error is coming because of these two things. Let me just say file new. Okay, cancel that. So challenges with let's talk about challenges with DNS servers. Number one, the DNS server could be sitting outside the network for Mivoice Business, which means a default gateway is required to reach the DNS server whilst the gateway is down. So that's scenario number one. We could be having our DNS server sitting away from the network, where we then need the default gateway to reach the DNS server. Number two, the DNS server itself could be on the same network. By network we mean subnet, with MIVB, and in this scenario a gateway is not required, but the DNS server. But the DNS server could be the DNS server could be down, although it is on the same network, but it is down. B, the DNS server itself might the other reason could be that the DNS server might be incorrect or inexistent, which means what could be happening is that IT could have given us a wrong IP address for the DNS server, so we would be putting in an incorrect IP address for the DNS server, or the DNS server might just not be existing. Or lastly, the DNS server itself could be up but not being able to resolve the Mitel license server FQDN. So this FQDN is the fully qualified domain name for AMC or SLS now, as it is being called. So you can take a moment to take a screenshot of these ones, as I am going to move on to the challenges with default gateway. Challenges with default gateway. Okay, the first challenge with the default gateway is that the default gateway could be down. Number two, we could be using an incorrect or incorrect IP address for the gateway. The IT guys could have given us an incorrect IP address for a default gateway, or the default gateway itself doesn't exist. And number three, we could be using a wrong subnet mask for our IP address on Mivoice Business. For example, if our Mivoice Business IP address is equal to 192.168.1.2 and we give it a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0, and the gateway we say, okay, let's say 128.255.128, and then our default gateway is, we are probably told that our default gateway is 192.168.1.254. by virtue of the subnet being like this cannot be a correct default gateway for this subnet mask, because it falls outside the subnet where 192.168.1.2 belongs. Okay, let's move on to other challenges. The other challenges are that everything could be okay, the default gateway could be okay, the subnet mask and the DNS servers, they can all be okay and available, but there could be a firewall between the Mivoice Business and the internet, which means that firewall is blocking a clear path to the Mitel license server. If we test internet connectivity, it is there, but when we try to sync, we fail. This is where also we can end up seeing an error that says check that SSH port 22 is not blocked, is actually open on your network. So those are other challenges that can arise. So I've had some technicians call me saying, but I do have internet, it's working, but I'm getting this error that I cannot license. So even if you have internet, you could be having internet fine, but your internet could be restricting you from reaching the Mitel license server on the internet. That is all for now. Thank you for watching. Enjoy your day.